Hi, I'm Cecile, a Canadian living in Turkey. This is part two of my conversation with Chrissy. Today we're talking about parenting and making friends. Enjoy.
So let's pivot a little bit. You brought up your children. I too am a mom. So one thing I think about a lot as a parent is, the identity of my children. Obviously, they're going to forge their own identities, but especially when they were really younger, I put a lot of effort into making sure they were Canadian enough, that they were German enough. Here we were away from my culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I really tried to instill that in them to the point where it almost caused me some stress and anxiety. And now that we're no longer in Istanbul and we're in the south, we're much more integrated into Turkish society. And of course, my children are half Turkish. So now the Turkish part of their personality is really, has flourished, has blossomed. And it took me a while to be okay with that. And I just wonder, how do you balance raising kids with two nationalities, with two cultural identities? Do you give it any thought at all? Do you let it just happen? Is that an issue for you?
Yeah, I feel like my approach has been very natural about it because I feel like to a large degree, it's out of my control. We live where we live. We live in a country that is not my home country, yet I am the mother. So the motherly influence is the American influence, but we're not in the mother's country. So my children, well, one of them is still not fully speaking yet. She's still little, but my older one, he's nearly 9 years old, and his English is stronger because mother tongue, of course. And if I think so, we've been lucky enough that every summer and every Christmas we have made a trip back to the States, with the exception of this past Christmas, which we stayed here, and it was really actually lovely. But that connection, going back every 6 months and seeing family and hearing American English everywhere and being just in that different culture, I think has been really valuable to my kids. And I have just kind of let it take its course. I don't try to preach or overly teach American things. I want it to come naturally. I think this is how children absorb and learn. And then here, of course, they have, their Turkish father here and Turkish everything around them. And my husband's parents are in Izmir, so we see them throughout the year. And, I think that my kids, I don't know, I let it naturally happen, I guess you could say, because it's really out of my control to a certain degree. Yeah. I've been relaxed about it. And, but it's interesting, to see from my 8-year-old, his perception on certain things, and how he perceives himself. And, I think he first always calls himself American, and that he's always talking about living in America. we have never said, when you grow up, you'll go to American colleges or an American college, or you'll have a house in America. We've never really said this kind of thing, but so I think it's a connection with America that he feels inside his heart. And he's already projected his future to that. It's really interesting. Yeah. So, but as far as my perspective, I'm more laid back about it, and I want it to be organic and let them discover their roots as we go along.
Yeah. Well, I think I should probably take lessons from you. It would help me be a bit more relaxed.
Well, honestly, I don't know. Maybe I should take lessons from you. Maybe I should be a bit more, emphasizing certain things, or making sure they know this or feel this. I don't know. I really don't know what's right. I think anyone in our shoes feel like there's a large part of us that is just figuring it out as we go along. Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of figuring things out as you go along, how do you feel then in terms of your place in Turkish society? I'm imagining it's been a journey. I know you've learned the language, which is huge.
Yeah.
Do you find that you have mostly foreign friends, mostly American friends, mostly Turkish friends? Is it a healthy balance?
I guess I would say, well, first of all, yes, it's been a journey. And I feel like in my 12 years here, I've had several different Istanbul lives. There was the pre-kids life, and that was about 3 years, before we had kids, that we were living here. And there was that it's a different life without kids here, right? And then there's the post-kids, which is the other part of the life, and the life here. And then there's this layer of my career here, my job here. And, so I feel like there are with those different parts of my Istanbul life come different circles of people. And it's definitely filled with a lot of foreigners, and I think I don't actively seek out other, people who are not Turkish, but I think it just naturally happens in the circles that we're in. And my son does go to a Turkish school, and I have become, good friends with some of them, the Turkish moms there and the Turkish families. And so, with him entering school, like proper Turkish school these past couple of years, my Turkish circle has been opening a bit more. But it's really interesting. Most of those Turkish friends that I have are either internationally minded, or they lived abroad, or they speak fluent English and they want to speak English with me. So it's really interesting. The Turkish friends that I do have are very international, you could say. Yeah. So, but again, I feel like because I've thought a lot about this, like why is it like this? And I do think that my job has something to do with it, because I do my services in English. And so, my client base is either the foreigner crowd like us, or it's, like I said, these Turkish men and women who are more internationally minded, or have lived or traveled abroad. And so I think, I don't know, yeah, it's heavy on the, foreigner side. But I think if I lived outside of Istanbul, like if I moved to Adana or something like that, the experience would be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But we've been in Istanbul the whole time, so.
So you described yourself as being a very social person. And one thing I've noticed about you always is it seems, and I've always been very envious, like this is just, I think, such a beautiful aspect of you, that you seem to have a really amazing network of sisters, of friends, of girlfriends in Istanbul. Whether they're foreign or Turkish is irrelevant. Whether they are your best friends or not, I can't comment, but it seems that you have a really good network of people that I would say are not just, superficial relationships. It seems you have always really been good at making a lot of really good friends. And, that's just something I've always watched and thought like, wow, that's something Chrissy does really well. Can you comment on that? Is that something you're aware of, that you're conscious of? Have you always been like that?
Well, that's like the hugest compliment. Thank you very much for saying that. I mean, it's very flattering. And I would say I am a very social person. I have different circles of friends and acquaintances too. But the people who I let in, who I'm very close with, that circle is not very big at all. And I think it purely happens naturally. The whoever I become closer with, it's a connection thing.
Yeah.
And I think myself, like I yearn for the deeper connection. I think there's a part of everybody that does that, of course, but I think some people also don't mind having, more just social friends. And I think, especially as mothers and as working mothers, our time is really precious. And, the people that we spend it with, I want to have that, that deeper connection with. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of that, or maybe a lot of that, but I think it also just happens naturally because, when you said this, I was thinking back, like this hasn't just been in Istanbul thing, since I've lived here. This is the kind of, I guess, friendship making, you could say, that I've had throughout my life. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, well, thank you.
So Chrissy, where can people find you if they want to talk to you more, follow you, keep up with what you're doing?
Sure. Well, I am in the process of rebranding. So I cannot direct you to a website at the moment because it's under construction. But I do have an active Instagram page, and that is The Stylist. And so it's the, and then style, and then IST separately for Istanbul.
I'll link that in the description.
Perfect. Yeah, so they can, I guess that would probably be the best way to reach me. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, Chrissy, thank you so much for your time, first of all.
Thank you.
And
Thank
for,
you.
Just sharing your, your mind and your story with me. And again, it's been a great opportunity to catch you and to catch up.
Well, it was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very much, Cecile. I really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
So I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with Chrissy about parenting and making friends as a foreigner living in Turkey. If you missed the first half of our conversation talking about entrepreneurship, you can click on the video, the link up above. And if you want to be sure not to miss future conversations in this series, then just hit the subscribe button. See you next time. Bye.